Hello! Freedom Guy 55 here again. I wanted to talk to you about a book I've been reading. At least I've been trying to get through it. It's a little hard and difficult because, of course, it's a different particular kind of take upon how you would see the Gospels. You see, we always hear about the Gospels and pretty much what is written in them, and we read the stories and such like that, and we automatically have been grown up to, take the text as what they are. But the one thing is that we rarely ever hear about the biblical scholarship and what they've actually come up with over the years. And it seems like for about over, I'd say 80 years, they've actually been debating constantly on what things are fiction in the Bible and what things are, real or true in the Bible. And even especially within the Gospels as well. And it's been going on for quite some time. And this book I'm reading actually proposes that we know a lot more about the authors of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Oh, by the way, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did not write the Gospels. Actually, it seems that it's a 2nd century guess made by clergy who wanted to just tack on a label to these particular unnamed manuscripts that they had. And they didn't really invoke any sense of skepticism behind them to know exactly whether or not these characters were the actual characters. Oh, just wanted to tell you. But anyway, in this book, the author's actually proposing that we know a lot more about the authors who wrote the texts than we know about Jesus himself, just by pretty much what they wrote and how they wrote it. The interesting thing, what we also seem to find, is that he takes the two-source theory in order to promote his position. He takes this thing called the two-source theory. Now, this is a different particular type of theory than what you're actually used to. What it is that he takes Mark was the first gospel written, right? Okay? And out of its 666 verses, and yes, it has 666 verses. Get out of your system. Okay, anyway, out of the 666 verses, 600 of which appear in Matthew, and 300 of which appear in Luke. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this comes from a book called that he sourced. The source of his book, or the source that he uses, is a book that was written by a biblical scholar called Robert Funk, who proposed called the New Gospel Parallels in 1985 that Mark, because there are so much similarities, or so many verses that are very similar within Mark to Matthew and Mark to Luke, that Mark had to be in front of these the writers of Matthew and Luke. The manuscript had to be in front of Mark and Luke, and they were just copying from it because of how many similarities are within it. But he also cites another particular person called Arland Jacobson, who actually states that the non-Markian verses within Matthew and Luke are so similar and very similar to a lost gospel called Q, that it had to also be a document in front of these authors that they were also copying from and making their own manuscripts of these Gospels. So the thing is that Mark and Q were the actual two sources that were used to make Matthew and Luke. And he uses this particular type of, theory. And I find it more sound because it's actually using a sense of skepticism. It's actually trying to look at the verses and not what is written in the verses, but how the verses were written from its original text to also Hebrew text to, of course, today's. So they're adding more skepticism to this and pretty much more inquiry than I would say any of the other particular religious individuals who say that just read the Bible and say, and believe in whatever it states. So I find this to be a lot more sound of a position. Anyway, the author named Randall Helms, or Randall McGraw Helms, just say Randall Helms, and who is an author, and the book is titled, of course, Who Wrote the Gospels, if you wanted to know. Anyway, but that seems to be the summary, is that he's using this particular type of two-source theory in order for him to better understand who the people were that wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And in this book, he counts, I believe, 7 authors. He counts 7 authors within Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. 3 authors for John, and an author each for the rest of the Gospels, as well as stating that Luke is a woman, was written by a woman. I don't know how far you would take that because, that's pretty controversial. But I find it would be much more interesting the more I get into this book. It's just going to be a little difficult since being raised in a different direction, it's kind of hard. But I just wanted to talk to you about it and what I've learned about certain particular type of other biblical scholars that are out there that you don't really hear about much. You only hear about the Lee Strobel shit. So I thought I'd like to bring it up. Anyway, that's pretty much it. And I thank you for your time and have a nice day.